So I just got done watching week 5 of Dana White's Contender Series Season 9. This was a great week. After week 1, it's just been nothing but just straight uphill. We had some really good performances, a couple of Golden Freddy's KOs, namely the Cam Teague fight. Cam Teague got Golden Freddy KO'd. And then the other dude, Samuel Sanchez, he knocked out his opponent really badly. We're going to talk about all of it. We had the second coming of Jessica Andrade. We had a really big heavyweight fighter who he didn't cut down from this much, but he at one point weighed 525 pounds and had to lose all that weight to make the 265-pound weight limit. We're going to talk about all of it right now. I enjoyed this fight. This was actually a really good WMMA fight. This was Chanel Dyer versus Carol Foro. Chanel Dyer, she was being hyped up like the organization was touting her to be the person to win this fight. She comes from the same gym as Lerone Murphy and all those boys at Manchester Top Team, I believe. Excuse me, Great Britain Top Team. She had Lonnie Kavanaugh doing her intro as she was walking out. She got beat up though. Carol Foro put it on her really badly. Chanel Dyer, you could tell that she had never been beaten up that badly because she didn't really know how to react to the type of offense that Carol Foro was giving to her. She comes out with a really strong low kick. Her kicking offense was something that was talked about as being like the most formidable part of her game. It was neutralized very quickly by Carol Foro, who was just rotating through the sequence of utilizing her hooks to the body and up high, as well as straight punches and overhands. And she would throw these punches in about like 2 to 3 punch combinations, and they would all score. And they were cutting Dyer, they were dropping her. She got dropped like 2 or 3 times in the first round of this fight. Carol Foro reminds me, and even the announcer table was talking about it too, of a little Andrade. She hits really hard, but the thing about Andrade and her that separates the two of them is that Foro seems to have much better fight IQ. And like the times that she chooses to throw certain strikes as well, she just does it better than Andrade. She's a better fighter than Andrade, it looks like. She's younger and smarter. It's going to be really interesting to see what she's going to accomplish in this division. She ends up winning a decision, and that's just because she gasses out a little bit towards the end of the fight. They're both very tired. Chanel Dyer from getting beat up, and Carol Foro from beating up Chanel Dyer. Chanel Dyer was landing some really stabbing teep kicks, and I mean, her kicks were kind of effective, but it wasn't enough to slow down Carol Foro when she started to get going in this fight. Going back to that Jessica Andrade comparison for Carol Foro, I think that she's going to knock out a lot of women in this weight class, just because she has better spatial awareness. Jessica Andrade, she misses a lot with her offense. She'll blitz and her punches look scary, and if she lands one shot in the combination, it could change the fight, but she's missing a lot. In that fight against Lupi Godina, she was just punching air the whole time. Carol Foro has a lot better accuracy, and her defense is better. Because Chanel Dyer, through the last 5 minutes of the fight, was trying to finish Carol Foro with her kickboxing and setting up her kicks with punches. And they would have probably scored on a fighter like Jessica Andrade, who we've seen sort of has this level of reckless abandon whenever it comes to keeping herself safe. Foro doesn't have that same pitfall. I think that she's going to be very successful at women's strawweight. Maybe it's like a curse or something, but Chanel Dyer shared her backstory, which was pretty sad leading into this fight, right before she was about to walk out, and she lost. That's sort of like a bad omen for the Contender Series. If you have a sad upbringing and you talk about it before you make your walk, you're probably going to lose the fight. I'm going to be paying attention to that the more that I see it happen. Both of these ladies end up getting contracts, though, because Dana White just rocked with their fight, and I was rocking with it too. So good for both of them. We'll be matchmaking each of the fighters who get contracts at the very end of this video. Foro does win via decision, though, in the first fight. Next, at lightweight, we have Chasen Blair versus Samuel Sanchez. There's really not much to talk about here. Chasen Blair comes out and tries a standing backpack Samuel Sanchez. It's not really working, though. There's no type of lock that gets wrapped up for the RNC. He's using the cage to scoop Samuel Sanchez off of him. Once he's able to disengage the hooks from his back, Samuel Sanchez is able to get Chasen Blair off of him, and then they get into the clinch and they tie up there. Samuel Sanchez lands a knee, and then he drops his combination that is a rear uppercut, a lead hook, and then a rear hook, and then a lead hook to the body, and then he just throws a rear hook. And then the rear hook slumps Chasen Blair out cold, but it's this delayed reaction, because the lead hook grazes his nose afterwards, and it's like even a second after the lead hook grazes his nose where Chasen Blair just completely Golden Freddy KOs. Like he's assuming the Golden Freddy suit position as soon as these punches land, and the combination that I've just described to you right now. The craziest bit about all of this is that Samuel Sanchez is actually my age. I'm 22 years old as well, and this dude he's just slumped a man out cold for a contract on the Dana White's Contender Series, which is horrific KO. This was amazing. I caught myself sleeping at the wheel after the last women's fight. Samuel Sanchez delivered a very beautiful KO in this fight. This guy trains with Jailton Almeida, so he made sure to give a heartfelt thank you to Jailton Almeida for all the times he had put him on and mentioned his name in post fights where he would win. Apparently this guy had him around in like 2023 whenever he was making his run and asking Sean Shelby and Dana White to give his boy Samuel Sanchez a chance whenever he was like 20 years old. So he's been being scouted for a little bit. Really good performance. The fact that he does train with Maladino likely is the reason why he knew exactly how to counter that backpack. And once he got his feet back under him, he slumped Blair so badly. Find the clip, find the replay clip, dude. If you haven't seen it, like you probably have. If you follow ESPN MMA, you've probably seen this. He probably posted it. Samuel Sanchez wins the fight via round 1 KO. Not TKO, KO. He knocks him out. This was a little lull in the action. We had Felipe Franco versus Freddy Vidal at light heavyweight. So Freddy Vidal, he comes from a really reputable gym. He trains out of Serra-Longo in Brooklyn with Aljamain Sterling and Nazim Sadikov, who he had there. Even Merab Dvalishvili. Merab Dvalishvili was not there in the crowd. It was only Aljo and Nazim Sadikov. But I mean, Ray Longo was there cornering him. This guy is like a elementary school PE teacher. 3-0. This was his 4th professional fight. Took the fight on 6 days of short notice, so he missed weight by 5 pounds. He was fighting against Felipe Franco, who, even though the entire intro cutscene for Freddy Vidal was spent with him talking about how he's been a lifelong martial artist, getting into boxing and wrestling whenever he was 11 years old, he came out and just got bulldozed by Felipe Franco and was getting controlled on the ground for a large portion of the first round. And then from half guard, he was able to sweep positions to get into top full guard. And then he advanced into mount and then side control and crucifix Felipe Franco and ended up getting some really nice damage in to close that round. So he wins the first, drops the second round. Felipe Franco and Freddy Steven Vidal, they both came to the octagon with 7 minutes of cardio each, so they were gassed out completely after the first round. It took about like 2 minutes into the second round for them to each just be clinching for their lives. And they were crashing into this clinch just so that they wouldn't get knocked out, each of them. But neither of them would have the stamina to knock each other out, so we saw a lot of stalemating through 7 minutes. The second round could have went to Felipe Franco. I was just itching my nuts the whole time talking to the chat, I'm not going to lie to you. But in the third round, it was pretty much more the same. Freddy Vidal ends up getting back to that side control position, and then he takes it back on Felipe Franco, wraps up a neck crank, and then gets a little baby tap out of Felipe Franco. Petitions his case to get a contract from Dana White. He says, you know, I took this fight on 6 days short notice. I did win. Give me a contract, please. That's kind of what he went with. And Dana White was like, I don't know. In the very end, Vidal does end up getting the round 3 submission, and Dana White decides that he is going to reschedule Freddy Vidal to take a fight with more notice at the very end of the Dana White's Contender Series. We're on week 5. These seasons normally span from about 10 to 12 weeks, so that should be enough time for him to get in shape and to make the scales. Now hopefully put on a better fight too so he can get a contract, because I know that's what he's there for, even though he did just win a fight here. And I found out that these guys will also get paid for winning fights on the Contender Series, so good for him. He's not going home with nothing. They do the same pay scale with like the show and then the win bonus as well. So he gets like 15 bands maybe before taxes, 20 bands. I thought they would have given him the contract though, based off of the stable that he came from and also who he had with him supporting him, Aljamain Sterling, Nazim Sadikov. But I think that they're strongly going against the idea of nepotism. The best thing that they can do is something like rescheduling the guy, because even last week, I think it was last week with the Chaplin fellow, exactly. That was DC's guy, and DC was really pushing for that guy to get a contract, and he did not have a good fight, so Dana White did not give him a contract. So I don't think this is about who you know, the Dana White's Contender Series. This is like first season really watching closely, so I'm not sure if it's ever been about that, but if you don't put on a good fight, you're not getting a contract, and Dana White has made sure of this through his ruling at the very end of these episodes. Lots of integrity going on. The guys who deserve to be in the UFC are in the UFC. This was a neat fight. Cameron Teague versus Larian Douglas. This was another Golden Freddy KO. It happened very fast. It was like a 36-second knockout, I think it was. Ben Askren KO. This guy, Cameron Teague, if he wanted to show that he was really locked in, he should have came out with the shaven head, bro. I think that would have boded better for him than to come out with the shaggy hair that he lost to Kevin Vachejos with. And this is the thing about it, right? Kevin Vachejos was touted to be the next Ilia Topuria based off of the skills that he demonstrated against this guy. Clinical boxing, which doesn't really translate to being able to do the same things that Up Toro, Top Toro can do in the UFC once he actually started fighting there. What does that make Larian Douglas in? Larian Douglas just flatline KO'd this guy so badly. He comes from a good gym as well. Bloodline Combat Sports. I think that that's in Southern California where Cub Swanson trains, because I did see Cub Swanson with him. Cub Swanson is another guy with insane power in his hand. So he's teaching this Larian Douglas guy, if he's working with him closely and is like coaching him in MMA, how to use his power. And my goodness, can he use it? It was literally just a lead hook and then a right hook. They ended up flash KOing Cameron Teague. Cameron Teague ended up on his back, gets up, gets pressed up against the cage, eats another lead hook and gets slumped out cold. And he's like stiff for a little bit. And it's funny because he gets up and starts protesting the stoppage like he could continue to fight. But this guy, it was an early stoppage. In all reality, this was definitely an early stoppage. Cameron Teague, he face blocked perfectly. That was a perfect check with his cheekbones on the fists of Larian Douglas. Perfectly executes a corpse guard. The ref should have just let it play out a little bit more, I'm thinking. That was an early stoppage without a doubt. Larian Douglas does win this fight, round 1 KO, out cold. And then we end with the heavyweight fight, Anthony Garasio versus Steven Asplund. Steven Asplund, he wins this fight via round 1 TKO. And dude, the build-up of this was so funny because Anthony Garasio was picking on Steven Asplund for being overweight. Steven Asplund is a fighter who I was talking about before had to lose 300 pounds in order to make the heavyweight weight limit. And he's in shape now, it seems. But like his physique doesn't really reflect it because he has a loose skin from being as heavy as he was at one point. Photo doesn't really do him justice. It's a nice picture of him there. He looks kind of crazy, I'm not gonna lie. The dude for sure isn't gonna pop for gear, I'm not thinking. And he even made a joke about it. Like you can tell I'm not on steroids. He said some crazy stuff after he won the fight too. We'll get to that though. But Anthony Garasio, he is a very confident guy. I thought that he might have won because, I mean, he's taking pictures with the UFC belt on him and posting it to his Facebook as I'm getting these PNGs. He's a Cage Fury Fighting Championship heavyweight champ, and we saw guys come from that promotion like Eric Nolan. And then also Kyle Dawkins, he went to that promotion to fight after he got cut in the UFC. It's a legitimate promotion. So I was like, Anthony Garasio, he might be cooking something here. He might actually win this fight. Garasio was confident too. He said he was going to turn Steven Asplund into a grilled cheese sandwich and eat him, if you believe that sentence that I've just uttered out of my mouth. Those were his words. Anthony Garasio was going to, I don't know. He came out, though, and he started getting tagged by some crazy shots. It was a really close in hook that landed for Steven Asplund. Didn't even look like a hard shot. It's just heavyweight, and whenever guys come out throwing like they were, it's bound to produce a very fast stoppage. This fight wrapped up in 16 seconds for Asplund. Asplund gets on the mic, and he says, "Dana, please give me a contract." He said he would suck Dana White's toes for a contract. I mean, he realized that was a stupid thing to say, and he said, "Please sign me," even though I just said something so stupid. Asplund was one of the big dudes in high school who maybe like a lineman on the football team, and they're large, but they're funny as hell, bro. Asplund is super funny, and he can handle a mic. He just ends up he's just funny though. That guy is funny. Every single time that he talks, like a cartoon, bro. It's so funny. Garasio honestly was pretty good at handling the mic as well. His promo that he cut before walking out was pretty entertaining, but Asplund, he's just a different level of entertainment. I'm glad that he's the one who gets a contract. He ends up winning this fight via brutal TKO in the first round. It was quite a show. So, the event recap was really nice. Dana White, he comes out in a good mood again. He has no reason to really complain after the first week being so bad and the way that all the fighters turned it around afterwards. These guys, they want contracts. The guys in the first week, that could have been up for debate. Freddie Vidal, he gets promised a second chance, the final episode of the season, as I talked about before. Let's do some matchmaking for the guys who actually did get contracts. So, Chanel Dyer, she should fight with Shauna Bannon. I am not going to go in too much depth as to why I think that women's strawweight fights would be good fights. This could be like the opener of an Apex card, one of the UFC Vegas fight nights. Have Chanel Dyer fight with Shauna Bannon. Or if you want to make it the opener of an England fight night, since both of these women are from the UK, you could do that too. Regionally, it kind of makes sense. Stylistically, I think that Shauna Bannon doesn't do well with grapplers. Dyer was only shooting whenever she got into trouble on the feet. Ideally, I think that she would opt to take these fights in the stand-up, so this would be a striking affair. If Dyer would have gotten the fight to the ground and she ends up not having a good ground game, then she would probably get armbarred by Shauna Bannon, which, I mean, yeah, if that happens, then she never deserved the contract to begin with. I think that this is like an okay test for her. Granted, she did lose the fight. For Carol Foro, have her fight with Denise Gomez. Denise Gomez lost to Angela Hill in 2023, but since then she's been on a 3-win streak against Eduarda Mora, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and also Elise Reed as well. I don't see Foro encountering a hard fight unless she has weakness to getting grappled and she fights a strong wrestler until she reaches the rankings. Foro definitely has the ability to knock women out the same way that Denise Gomez does. Elise Reed got chinned in her fight with Denise Gomez with a left hook, but that's also one of Carol Foro's best weapons, so this would be like a mirror match. And I think that they'd be fighting for the title of the most evolved Andrade archetype, and I think that's Carol Foro, since she is the newer and fresher fighter. I don't see her having troubles getting ranked in this division just because of the lack of depth, and I think that she's just pretty good. Her hand looked hurt, though. She had it in a cast at the very end as she was getting her contract awarded, so maybe we do see a little bit of a layoff out of her. Maybe she has to heal and recover from that. Could be a little bit before you end up seeing her make her return. But yeah, I think that's what we should do. Denise Gomez versus Carol Foro. Chanel Dyer versus Shauna Bannon. All right, so for a fighter like Samuel Sanchez, very young, have him fight an experienced guy like Trey Ogden. Trey Ogden, he has a vulnerability to being grappled. He's lost to fighters like Jordan Levitt and also Thiago Moises. He has an experience with fighting new up-and-coming prospects. He's beaten Daniel Zellhuber before earlier on in his career in 2022. This would be another test like Daniel Zellhuber for Trey Ogden. It would also give Samuel Sanchez the ability to test himself against an experienced veteran, a guy who has wins against people in the UFC who are decent names, namely Daniel Zellhuber and Kurt Holleba, but no great wins, and he's really just a placeholder in this division, a guy who a dude like Samuel Sanchez comes up and beats in order to move forward through lightweight. I think this is good matchmaking here. Previously, they did schedule Trey Ogden with Ignacio Bahamundes in 2023, and Trey Ogden lost that fight. Again, this is a guy who just historically has tested up-and-coming prospects. I think that Samuel Sanchez may be able to produce another knockout in this fight. If anything, if he shows a well-rounded skill set and is able to win, that is all the better for him. Maybe not all the better because I like watching people get knocked out, but point received. He's not just this dude who needs to rely on finishing fights. He can pace himself for 15 minutes and get things done that way if he needs to. Again, all of these fights I think that you put on UFC Apex cards. I don't think that any of these guys are big show business draws, but they could give us really big knockouts. So I'm going to be on the lookout for the next scheduling of each of these fighters' fights. Next is going to be Larian Douglas. Who I would give him to fight next is going to be Melsik Bagdasaryan. It's funny because there's certain fighters like Weston Wilson is another guy who comes to the top of my mind. And then Carlos Hernandez, it was the same deal with him and like Asian fighters. They give certain fighters from one part of the world, fighters of a certain nationality, to fight recurringly through their entire time in the UFC. And they either prove themselves against these regional talents or they just don't. And that becomes the running joke. Drew Dober is another example of this, right? I think that coming off of a loss to John Silva, Melsik Bagdasaryan should have the opportunity to get it back against another Brazilian. Have him fight Larian Douglas. Larian Douglas is a fighter who could be sent on a similar track to Gian Silva. I'm not sure if they have higher aspirations for Larian Douglas for the fact that he was an ex-LFA champion, but I think it could be a fun fight as well. Probably ends up in a knockout, so that's something else to look out for. I'd say it'd be a good idea to give Larian Douglas a fight with Melsik Bagdasaryan just to see what happens. I'm trying to see something. And finally, let's give that boy Steven Asplund a fight with Shikao. Shikao hasn't really accomplished a whole lot other than a knockout win over Junior Tafa, which he immediately was thrown into a card on the Apex to headline with Derek Lewis following. I'm not sure if he deserved that. A lot of people feel like he didn't deserve that either. We should give Shikao a fight with a guy who's coming up off of the Contender Series too. Just off of the strength of him beating Justin Tafa. I'm not sure if I said Junior or Justin Tafa. He's ranked number 14th in this division. So a guy like Steven Asplund, even though he does look like ABC gum, he is in a position to become ranked in one fight because of the fact that he did earn his contract in such a way. And because of the fact that there's just no heavyweights. And that's proven by Ante Delaya fighting with Marcin Tybura. Marcin Tybura is ranked number 10 in the division. And he still holds on to that number 10 ranking even after losing the way that he did. Ante Delaya is just number 9 now and everybody moves down. And that still results and Taliesin Teixeira, who was number 13, still being ranked. So there's just no heavyweights. All you really have to do is put on a semi-entertaining fight. If you win a fight via any type of stoppage on the Contender Series and you're a 265er, you're getting a contract. So all that's left for him is just to take the standard course through the title, which is going to be maybe winning 1 or 2 fights against fat guys or anybody at this point, since the numbers of 265ers that we have readily accessible to upcoming prospects at heavyweight is dwindling so much. And then he fights Derek Lewis or Tai Tuivasa on the comeback is what I heard a lot of people in my chat talking about, like Blob versus Blob. That'll be a Blob Hall of Fame matchup. But I mean, this guy is 6'5", and he's moving really well. Under all that loose skin, he's not a fat boy anymore. So I mean, we can see what type of cardio he has. Maybe put him up against like a Kennedy Nzechukwu, a guy who will have a bit more endurance in the average heavyweight. But I think this is a good test because, I mean, what has Taliesin Teixeira really accomplished in 265? Not a whole lot. So yeah, those are going to be my picks, you guys, for the matchmaking. I am going to upload this video, head to the gym. Sorry for being slow on the uploads. I've been trying to get hired at a job, and luckily I did actually get a job. I got hired somewhere today. So I'm going to try to get back on the content and be a bit more disciplined in uploading. I've been training as well, so that's been cutting into my time a little bit too. But excuses. Nobody wants to hear those. Just make the freaking videos, BeewolfMMA. So I'm going to get back to it. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to this point in the video and supporting the channel. Like everyone who just be rocking with me. So please do like, comment, and subscribe if you made it to this point in the video. I will catch you fellas in the next upload. Peace out.